Anyway, okay. Luke chapter 2, reading from verse 1. Aloud together, please. Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Interesting. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. And I'll read on. So they said to him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. When Herod heard, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go and search carefully for the young child. When you have found him, bring back word to me that I may come and worship him also. When they heard the king, they departed, and behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them till it came and stood over the young child, where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. And when they had come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then, being divinely warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed for their own country another way. And I'm going to go back to the beginning real quickly. So after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem. They're looking for this Jewish boy. Now, most of our scenes, our manger scenes and all that, the wise men are at their manger scene. This was probably about 2 years later, the visit of the wise men. And Mary and Joseph were no longer in the stable. They were in the house now. And Jesus was probably about 2 years old. And so Herod found out, because he's a jealous king and the king of the Jews, that he would lose his kingdom. And so he ordered the slaughter of all the male children 2 years old and younger. He was going to make sure he gets them. So that's later on in the chapter, but the visit of the wise men, it's a misconception that he's seen at the manger scene. They weren't. They came later. And so Herod inquired, the wise men went, they rejoiced when they heard, and so they presented their gifts, and then they go back to their own country, and they don't go back through Jerusalem. Verse 13, now when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, take the young child, notice child, not a baby, and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and stay there until I bring you word. For Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the Lord through the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt I called my son. Then Herod, verse 16, when he saw that he was deceived by the wise men, was exceedingly angry, and he set forth and put to death all the male children who were at Bethlehem, and in all its districts from 2 years old and younger, and under, according to the time which he had determined from the wise men. Then it was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah, saying, A voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation, weeping, and great mourning. Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted because they are no more. Now when Herod was dead, verse 19, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Arise, take the young child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the young child's life are dead. Then he arose, the young child and his mother and came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea instead of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. This group of Herods, there were several of them. They were all bad guys, and so he was afraid to go there. So it says, and being warned by God in a dream, he turned aside. That was verse 22, verse 23, and he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene. And it's interesting about that as well. Because of that, many people think that he had taken the Nazarite vow, which he had never taken. He was called a Nazarene because of the city of Nazareth. You see what I'm saying? But the Nazarite vow, there was a temporary vow, and then there was a lifelong vow. And when you take that vow, you couldn't cut your hair. That's why in most of the pictures about Jesus, he has long hair. He probably didn't have, but because he hadn't taken the Nazarite vow. So there's another misconception. And that's why I do this, not to upset what we traditionally have learned, but to see what the Scripture actually recorded. And the wise men, their visit, and so on. And he was a child. And Herod really tried to wipe him out, and was unsuccessful, of course. And Jesus survived that whole thing. And anyway, so with that, we have finished our study on the events of the shepherds visiting the manger and so on. And then the wise men ultimately coming and visiting the child and his parents in a house.